Do you need rock solid bulletproof internet in your RV?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah. This guy is going to show you how to get it.
Right now.
I'm going to go back to work.
So welcome to the Bat Cave. This is where Tara and I work full-time on the channel and also my day job.
Hello.
Hello. Tara's going to be editing back here, so you're going to see stuff going on the screen back here. Probably on a video that's already out by the time you see this.
Top secret.
Top secret right now, but you know, once it's out, it won't be. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff here, and I'm going to try not to super geek out on you. Tara's going to try to keep me in line so I don't go off on too many tangents. If you watched our first internet video, you know that was over 2 years ago. We've been living in this RV for 2.5 years, and while that system was very adequate and it did the job initially, it had some ups and downs that I'm going to get to, but it was time for an update. It was time for something a little more solid, a little more resilient. We want to start doing more lives with our channel and things like that. We just need better, more stable internet. If you've already seen our mobile internet video from 2 years ago and you want to just skip to the part where we show our new stuff, meaning you're already kind of familiar with the ins and outs of mobile internet, we'll have links below. You can click on that and jump right to that section. But we're going to cover some of the basics just so we have some groundwork before I show you our new setup. Also, for the purpose of this video, mobile internet means mobile, meaning you're actually moving. You know, moving more frequently than would be practical for you to actually get like cable or DSL or something like that. If you're seasonal or you stay in a place for 3 or 4 months, then move, your best bet for internet is probably going to be whatever's offered locally. What we're going to talk about today is strictly mobile. We move about every 2 weeks. Some of you move more often, some less. But the whole idea here is you take it with you wherever you go. That said, since I'm not going to teach you everything there is to know about internet, I don't want to leave you without a resource to find out everything you want to know. That is the Mobile Internet Resource Center. You've heard me talk about this before, even in our video 2 years ago, and nothing's changed there other than they've got even more content. Mobile Internet Resource Center is done by Chris and Cherie. Their YouTube channel is Technomadia. That's like their travel, RV, and boating channel. And the Mobile Internet Resource Center is gold. It's got everything you could possibly want to know about mobile internet, from down to modem details to signal strengths and decibel levels, and they do testing on everything. This is what they do full time. Now, part of their website is membership based. It's called the Mobile Internet Aficionados, and I highly recommend that. They eat, live, drink, breathe this stuff 24/7. They're always on top of it, so you'll definitely want to check them out. Another thing I'm super excited to share with you guys is their new mobile internet interactive video course. For those of you who are just kind of don't know where to start, where to jump in, this course will take you from the ground up, with each layer kind of building on the next. They start out kind of small and go over some of the general concepts, and then they drive that all the way down into modem specs and what you need and how to find it. Now, one thing I also really like about this course that I hadn't really thought about, and I'm going to steal it for this video, is the way they break it down into data plans, devices, and signal enhancing. Because really those three things kind of all go together for this mobile internet situation. You got to kind of have a little bit of a handle on all three of those for you to get decent mobile internet. So let me cover just a little bit about mobile internet and what some of your options are. For this, I'm going to go to the whiteboard. So our little box here, that is just representative of an RV. I realize it's pretty generic. It's just a box with some wheels, but at least it's got wheels. And of course, up in the right hand corner here is our internet. And the whole idea here is to be able to connect devices. Now you've got TVs in here, you've got cell phones, you know, you've got computers. It's a keyboard, by the way. And the idea here is to get all of these things connected to the internet, right? So a lot of people ask about campground Wi-Fi, they ask about Wi-Fi boosters, And so let's take a look at that scenario here. You've got a campground Wi-Fi here. This is an antenna, and they are connected to the internet. The signals from their Wi-Fi come right in, and you can connect right to those. The problem there is you might be far away from the signal, so you might think, okay, let's get a signal booster. Great, let's get those out of here. Let's put a little antenna on the roof, and it has a better capability to see those signals and then rebroadcast it inside. Great, we've boosted that signal. Here's the problem. This part here, where they're connected to the internet, is probably crap. It may be some DSL line, it may be a cable modem that isn't very fast, and also it's being shared by everybody else in the RV park. So you've got this, DSL line or whatever, and everybody's connecting to it, and it's going to be garbage. I can tell you this from experience. In 2.5 years, and just by probably over 100 campgrounds and RV parks, we have never, ever, ever found a good Wi-Fi. It's not there, it doesn't exist. So it's up to you to create your own. So let's talk a little bit about satellite. I'm going to try to draw a little satellite here. It's got antennas sticking out. It looks a little bit more like Sputnik. So you got a satellite up here in space. It actually has to relay back down to the ground to a base station and then back up, out to the internet. And you've got to somehow talk to this satellite from your RV. Well, there's a couple of problems here. The biggest one being there's just no real good option out there currently. The options that do exist currently are super expensive and super limited in their data caps and the speed. It's a mess. You don't want to deal with satellite, period. Now, you may have been seeing some things in the news about Starlink and Elon Musk and his company launching all of these low Earth orbit satellites for global internet coverage. That's going to be pretty cool. Long story short, internet satellite sucks. It may be better in 2021, maybe 2022. We don't yet know what it's going to look like in terms of equipment or cost or data caps or any of that. So right now it's just a no-go. So Wi-Fi stinks, satellite stinks. Our only other option is cellular. The good thing is it's a really good option if you have the right equipment and the right data plan. So let's get into that. Before we jump into cellular internet, I want to cover a couple of terms with you that we're going to be using so we just have a good vocabulary to start with here. So you're going to hear me say a few things like MIMO. MIMO stands for multiple in, multiple out, and what that really means is things like this, hotspots, routers, modems. Most newer ones have the ability to do MIMO, which means they have at least 2 antennas that can talk at the same time to the tower, sometimes even on different bands or different frequencies when you've got 2 channels going at the same time. The cool thing is it's like doubling your throughput, right? Instead of having 1 antenna talking, you've got 2 antennas both talking, and it can really help improve your speeds. Another thing I want to mention is signal strength and bars. A lot of times you're looking on your phone here and you go, oh, I got 3 bars, I should be good, right? Or I got 4 bars, fantastic. It doesn't really mean anything. Bars mean next to nothing. We've been in situations where I've got 1 bar on my phone and we have great internet. We've been in situations where I've got 4 bars and it's crap internet. Let's talk about some of your options, just generally speaking, when you want to connect things in your RV to the internet. The simplest of those is this guy right here, cell phone. A lot of these can do what's called tethering or sharing, and it'll depend on your data plan, so make sure you're allowed to do that. But essentially it looks like this. We've got our cell phone here, and these guys connect over Wi-Fi to the cell phone connects to the cell tower, and then the cell tower to the internet. Again, real basic setup, sharing off your cell phone. It's not great, but it'll do in a pinch. A lot of computers also support direct tethering, meaning I can plug this end into my phone and this end into my computer. My computer will see this directly and be able to communicate that way. The benefit there is I'm not communicating wirelessly to the phone. You have to remember when you've got these different technologies going on that every single point in the chain is a chain. The thing about chains is they're only as good as their weakest link. So if I've got my computer connecting to this over Wi-Fi, then this connecting to the cell tower, and then the cell tower connected to the internet, if any one of those things is garbage, or if there's a lot of interference on one end, or anywhere in between, it can cause bad problems. Which is again why bars aren't the end-all be-all. Even your Wi-Fi bars. I could have a great Wi-Fi signal here, but if it has a bad connection somewhere down the line, it's going to be bad here. So let's talk about one notch up from that, and that is a mobile hotspot. This device is called a hotspot, and that's just kind of a generic term. I think it might be actually licensed by somebody or something, but the whole idea here is this is a cellular data connection in a little box. So that looks like this. Here we've got our hotspot, and all of your devices connect to this hotspot, and then the hotspot connects to the tower connects to the internet. The benefit here is these have built-in Wi-Fi. So, you can take this, you can stick it on a window, you can put it somewhere where it's got a good connection, and it can actually serve as your entire internet. It's not great, but again, it'll do in a pinch. One of the catches with hotspots is they are usually carrier locked, meaning this one is for AT&T, this one's for AT&T, this one's for Verizon. You can't just move the SIM cards back and forth and have it go from one plan to the next. If you want some redundancy in your mobile internet, which we highly recommend. Another drawback to these hotspots is the Wi-Fi that they produce is not great. It's not super strong. I would venture to say if I had the hotspot sitting back here, I wouldn't be able to reach it from the bedroom. It's not strong. Additionally, what we found is it's not really stable either. We've had to reboot these multiple times a day, and they can be a bit of a pain. But it's simple. One device, boom, you're done. So the next step up from just a plain old hotspot is a hotspot plus a router. And this is where we've been for the past 2.5 years, is we've had this Wi-Fi Ranger, and this Wi-Fi Ranger serves as our internal Wi-Fi. The cool thing about this versus having, a couple different ones of these is I can configure all of our devices, our Apple TVs, our computers, our phones, to connect to one device, this thing, and then this thing talks to these things to get to the internet, and it looks like this. You've got your hotspot here. I'm going to try to do an R. These also give the added benefit of having wired connections available. So in that situation, it looks a bit like this. The computer might be hardwired, whereas the TV and the phones might connect over Wi-Fi. The router is connected to the hotspot, and then the hotspot to the tower to the internet. The biggest benefit here is I've got one device that kind of manages it, right? So when we would get to a location in the past, I would test AT&T, I would test Verizon, whichever one was better. I would plug into this guy over USB and get to the internet. You'll notice that sometimes I talk about Wi-Fi, sometimes I talk about wired. Wired is always better. Whether we're talking about Ethernet to a guy like this, or whether we're talking about connecting this to the hotspot through a USB cable. Anywhere you can eliminate wireless connectivity is best, because you're always going to be dealing with interference from other things. Our phones are doing Wi-Fi, everything's got Wi-Fi on it. And when you're in a crowded RV park or campground, everybody's got their own Wi-Fi, whether it's their phones or devices or whatever. It's just the airwaves are pretty full. So the next step up from dedicated mobile router, and I'll also mention here that I'm talking strictly about mobile routers. The difference between a mobile router and a regular router is a mobile router is designed to talk to something cellular. So this guy has the ability to talk to this guy. He knows how to use them, he knows how to communicate. A normal router is not going to be able to do that. Another option that you have with something like this is called Wi-Fi as WAN, meaning all of my devices inside can connect to this, and then this can connect to another Wi-Fi. Where Wi-Fi as WAN comes into play is you can have something like this, which serves as your hub inside your RV for all your devices to talk to, But let's say that I need to put this in a window or somewhere where it's got a better signal where a USB cord can't reach. Well, I can plug this in wherever I want, and I can turn on its Wi-Fi. I can connect to this guy via wired or Wi-Fi, and then this guy connects to this guy over Wi-Fi, which connects to the cell tower, which connects to the internet. The other thing is, if you do end up in an RV park or campground that does have good Wi-Fi, congratulations, you have found the golden goose. But this guy can do that talking for you, so you don't have to change all your devices to talk to the campground Wi-Fi. They're still talking to this, and then this guy talks to the Wi-Fi. The next step up in mobile internet devices is a cellular embedded router. I'd show you one, but ours is actually mounted to the wall up there. I'll show it to you. But the idea is, rather than having to connect this to some other modem like this or like this, is the modem is built in, and I can stick a SIM card in there, and this guy has it all in one. He has the internet connection, he has the Wi-Fi connection, and the cool thing about cellular embedded is they're not usually tied to a specific carrier. So you can put a SIM card in for AT&T, for Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, whatever you've got, you can put it in there and it can connect to it. Additionally, many of them, like the ones I'm going to show you from PepWave, have multiple SIM slots, meaning that if you've got an AT&T and a Verizon like we do, which again we highly recommend, because we've been in situations where we've got a great Verizon signal and no AT&T, and we've been in the opposite where we've got great AT&T and no Verizon. So having two carriers is really a must. If you're going to be on the road and you need internet like we do, you need two carriers. So if you remember me talking about Kristen Shrie's course, the three big players are plans, devices, and signal enhancing, right? So signal enhancing can be something as simple as this guy right here. This is a Netgear MIMO antenna. I've lost one of the little suction cups, but this was our go-to for a long time. This is MIMO, meaning it's got two connections here to connect to a modem, and it's directional. So it's got a couple of benefits there as far as signal enhancing goes. Number one, you can see it's bigger. It's got a bigger antenna than can possibly exist in something like this. Number two, it's directional. You can put it in a window and point it in a rough direction of a tower. You may not know where the tower is, but you can test it in different windows and see where you get the best speed. We've used this religiously for the last 2.5 years. If you're going to start out with a basic setup with just a hotspot, get one of these. It's like 20 bucks on Amazon. They plug right in, right here. These are called TS9 connectors, and they just plug right in, and it's been phenomenal. So another signal enhancing option, regardless of what setup you're talking about here, whether it's just a hotspot or whether it's a router plus a hotspot, or even whether it's a cellular embedded router, is a booster. So a booster's whole purpose is to, number one, get an antenna on the outside, an antenna that looks like this. This guy goes on your ladder or on a pole or something, and it sits outside, so it has better line of sight to the tower. And then that runs inside to the booster piece. This is the guy that actually takes the signal and amplifies it. And then that connects to an inside antenna, and that inside antenna sits right up next to your hotspot. I mean, literally, when we would connect these, they'd be like this, like an inch apart. And there have been several situations where we've been in areas that were way far away, and we absolutely would have zero internet without a booster. But here's the catch with the booster, is they're not MIMO, they're one channel. So we see a lot of people all the time who have these booster antennas, and they've got their boosters on all the time. 90% of the time, that booster is going to hurt their performance, not help it. As soon as you plug in the booster, and that's the strongest signal, and it's one channel, out go those other connections, and you're cutting yourself in half or in quarters as far as when you're talking about internet speed. So boosters are great in very specific circumstances and no other time. Last but not least, let's talk about data plans. And quite honestly, this is the most difficult piece right now. You know, I can spend money on routers, and I can buy antennas, and I can do all kinds of stuff if we have enough money for it, right? The trouble is, they're useless without a good data plan. Now, you might think you have an unlimited data plan on your cellular service. Probably wrong. The reason being is, yes, it is unlimited, but what a lot of carriers do is they put throttles and data caps. As soon as you hit a certain threshold, like 15 gigs or 10 gigs or 22 gigs, whatever, there's a certain level where you're going to hit, and one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to have a hard throttle, which means they're going to just put the brakes on you, and you're going to get like 128 kilobit. It's going to be like dial-up AOL style. Internet's going to be horrible. You're not going to be able to stream anything. The other type of throttle is called a network management throttle. That's actually what we have on our AT&T plan. When we reach 22 gigabytes, we are subject to network management. And all that means is, if they need the extra bandwidth, we're going to be deprioritized. That's actually not a bad thing. I mean, sure, you'd rather have no throttle ever, but when it comes to data plans, that's not too bad. We've never really seen any serious throttling over 22 gigabytes, and we use a lot more than 22 gigabytes. So what do? You go to Verizon right now, they're going to try to sell you their unlimited plan. Same thing with AT&T. Neither of them are good plans as far as mobile internet goes. A quick note on the data plan side of things is we do have a resource for you now, and we're going to get into that in just a second. So that's the overview. That's data plans, devices, signal enhancing things, antennas, stuff like that. So I want to talk just briefly about our old system, what we liked, what we don't like, and then we're going to talk about our new system. All the stuff that I've showed you here was basically our old internet setup, our Wi-Fi Ranger. We've gone through a couple different hotspots over the last couple of years. It's done its job, but not without some pain here and there. When we would get to a new location, it would be at least 30 minutes of trying, let's try this window, let's try that window, let's try Verizon, let's try AT&T, let's get on the roof, let's try the booster. You know, sometimes it could take 30, 60 minutes just to get the internet set up. We wanted to get away from that and have something a little more stable that also has some redundancies built in, so that if one goes down, one takes over. I've been looking for a good partner in this area for a long time because you guys have been asking, hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? And I would always refer you to our old system, and knowing that it was okay, but it wasn't as solid as we'd like. And I also didn't have any place to send you guys for data plans or help. Now we've got one place I can send you guys, and it's called Mobile Must Have. Data plans for both AT&T and Verizon, everything from Wi-Fi Rangers to cellular embedded modems to single modems to double modems to antennas. They've got all that stuff. Everything you need, you can go to one place and get it. And they are very good about qualifying you, meaning if you don't know what you want, you can call them and say, hey, here's what I need. I gotta have my Skype calls be rock solid, or I gotta have my video calls be rock solid, or it's not that big of a deal. I just want to stream internet and have videos or whatever. They can take your requirements and get you into the right gear the first time. They have a setup option as part of your purchase. I went through it with them when they sent us our cellular embedded router, and they'll spend a good hour with you, and they'll help you configure it. They'll teach it to you. They'll show you the interface, and I love it. I can send you guys there. We'll have links below in the description, of course. They are an affiliate, so we do make a commission off of that. It doesn't cost you anything else, but you'll also save 5% if you use our link. So we'll have links below for that. Also, full disclosure, they did send us the Ultimate Road Warrior RV and Boat Internet Access Bundle with Mobile Mark 7-in-1 antenna. That's a lot to say, but basically, the cool thing about this is they have kits where they've put together the router part of it along with signal enhancing part of it, and you can get the data plan part of it all at once. It's awesome. And it's really cool to be able to work with a company that we trust. They're also RVers. They know the pain, they know the struggles, and they're going to help you with whatever you need to get. All right, so let's jump into our new setup that I'm super excited to show you guys. I know we said we'd talk about this under the guise of data plans, devices, signal enhancing, so let's talk just real quickly about our data plans. We've gone through 2 Verizon plans that have both gotten the axe, so we have no Verizon right now. Right now we have two AT&T plans, our old grandfathered plan that we got in 2017, and we also have an AT&T plan through Mobile Must Have, and we're on a waiting list for a Verizon plan. So what I'm going to show you today, we have two AT&T plans going. Let's talk about gear. Now, if you watched our old video, you know we kind of had over here, we had our Wi-Fi Ranger and cables and antennas and boosters and all that stuff just sort of all stuck up there with command strips for 2.5 years. As you can see, that wall is nice and clean now, and everything is up here. You notice we went with a tech cabinet approach where basically all of the stuff terminates in one area like a cabinet, and that way it's really easy to hook things up to it. You know where everything is, it's out of the way, and it's off the walls. So right here we have our Netgear 8-port switch. This is basically just to control and connect all the hardwired items. Like here we've got connections from Tara's computer and my computer, connections to our NAS, which is down here, network attached storage, which gives us 12 terabytes of storage on our network for all of our video files. And we have a uninterruptible power supply to power all of it and give it nice clean power even if the power goes out. And up here is the main attraction. This is the Peplink PepWave Max Transit Duo. And you can see that we've got cables coming in. These go to our roof antenna, and this basically runs up through the bunk here and up to the roof. So here we've got MIMO antennas for modem 2, MIMO antennas for modem 1. We have a GPS connection, and back here are the connections for the Wi-Fi on the roof. You will also notice a little hole up here. This goes to a junction box on our roof where I can easily run cables from an exterior antenna, be it our MIMO XPOL antenna, which I'm going to show you, or a booster if we try that. So let's chat a little bit about the Wi-Fi side of this router. It's got dual band Wi-Fi built into it, and that can connect via the ports like I have it now going to a roof antenna, and you can also set up separate access points inside, which I'm going to show you also. The reason I did that is because I wanted the Wi-Fi on the roof just in case we happen to be in a situation where we have good campground Wi-Fi. Not very likely, but I want to be able to test it at each location and be able to report back to you guys on, you know, how it is. Is it good? Is it bad? 99% chance it's going to be bad. The trouble is with the Wi-Fi access point on the roof, the Wi-Fi inside isn't that great. So you can get an access point that integrates with this thing seamlessly. You don't really have to configure it or anything. You just plug it in and it starts working. After you set up your Wi-Fi and define your access points in the PepWave interface, if you add access points, be it physical actual access points, then it just configures it automatically. Now I did have an access point right here to kind of serve inside the RV. The trouble was I wanted to be able to use this setup, since this is on the whole time we're going down the road. I wanted our devices in the vehicle, in the truck, to be able to access the internet through this setup. Why not? It's there, it's running, it's always, you know, finding the best tower and that good stuff. The trouble is with the access point here, it did not reach the truck very well. So let me show you what I did. You might see a cable right there. That runs up past that speaker and into the ductwork here. That ductwork runs all the way to the front, around, and all the way to the back. So what I did, since this thing can be powered over Ethernet, I just ran an Ethernet cable into that duct and then all the way up front, and I'll show you. So up here in our bedroom, you can see we've got a vent here and a vent here. Those are two different sides of the racetrack system. And in here, is the access point. PepWave. So this gives us good coverage in the entire RV, but it's also sitting right up here somewhere, so it's not far from the front of the RV. And the last time we traveled, it worked great. Our GPS and our phones and Tara's laptop could all connect to the internet just fine. So the Max Transit Duo does come with these blade antennas if you don't have an external antenna. So this can be set up and run just as it is without having to, deal with the roof or anything like that. But I really recommend the kit. I mean, the part of the trouble with when we had the router and hotspots and everything on the wall in here was getting it up higher or getting access, getting better line of sight to the tower. So, you can use these, but we just got them in a bag because we have a roof antenna. And that's one thing I really like about what Mobile Must Have has done is create these bundles where you get the matching antenna with the right router and you can put it all in yourself. A little note about installing the antenna. I'm not going to show you a lot of details there because every RV is going to be different. I will tell you that the Mobile Mark antenna that we got with our system, it's been great. It does require a ground plane, but you can buy that with it. That's just basically a piece of metal that sits underneath the antenna. And for our installation, I discovered that right here in this bunk was a perfect distance. It was equidistant between this AC and the AC in the middle there. You want to have at least 18 inches from anything like that, more if you can. You also want to try to use the stock cables that come with the antenna and no more than that. So it takes a little bit of planning to figure out where you're going to put your router, where you're going to put the antenna, and how you're going to connect the two. You don't want to use extension cables unless it's absolutely necessary because every extra foot of cable adds impedance, which means you're going to lose signal. Also every connector. So if you've got an extension cables and you're connecting all 7 to another extension, it's just bad news. Your best option is to install it and figure out where you can put it so that the length of cable that comes with the antenna, which I want to say is maybe about 3 meters, roughly 10 feet, you want to make sure that it can route properly. For us in our 397, down through the bunk, across the bunk, and to here worked great. I also use the AC outlet that is in the bunk to power the UPS that's up there. So it's great. It's all nice and compact. It's all boom, it's right there. Don't have to mess with it. I don't have to move any antennas or do anything. It's just solid. Another thing we opted to purchase in addition to the kit was, bam, this guy. This is a MIMO directional antenna. It's called an XPOL. XPOL. That's just how I'm going to say it, is XPOL. But this thing, along with this antenna mast, this is a 25-foot telescoping antenna that mounts to the side of the RV. It's really super simple to set up. It's got mount points, and then I just slide these right in, crank the antenna up, and then these cables come straight down through that port that I showed you up there. I have a junction box on the roof. I can just run that cable straight in, disconnect one of my antennas from the Mobile Mark antenna, and plug this right in using these SMA connectors. And let me tell you what, this antenna is amazing. We first got this equipment in North Carolina in the mountains, and even with the roof antenna, with the Mobile Mark, it was a little sketchy. If you've ever been in the mountains and tried to get a cell signal, you know that you might have a great signal in one place and then you go 100 yards another direction and the signal's crap. So mountains can play a big part in that line of sight between your antenna and the tower. That's where this guy comes in. When I got this guy set up in North Carolina, man, it was night and day difference. Look at that sucker. That thing is way up there, man. That is awesome. We're talking about around 5 megabit download, like 30 megabit download. So getting this thing up, pointing it in the general direction of a tower, and there are a couple of tools you can use to find towers. I'll put some links below. I like cellmapper.net. There's also some iPhone and Android utilities you can use to help find towers. Or you can just point it and look at your readout on your interface to see what your decibel levels are and see which way is getting the best signal. Okay, so I showed you the physical install and how all that is, and that's all really cool, and the fact that we've got the antenna on the roof and we don't have to set anything up anymore. But what really makes this cool and takes advantage of this setup, particularly the dual modems, is the software and the interface. And I'm not going to jump into that. There are some videos Mobile Must Have has online, and likely some other videos too that you can find on the PepWave PepLink interface. But what I want to talk about is what dual modems gives you. So right out of the gate, when you've got two modems set up, you've got two, right? So if one fails, the other one's still chugging along. If that one fails, the other one's still chugging, and it gives you a bit of redundancy in that fashion. Now, by itself, it doesn't have like any kind of automatic failover for some software. Like if you're streaming something, if you're watching YouTube or Netflix, most streaming software protocols do an automatic kind of failover. So when you've got two modems, if one of them has a hiccup, if say Verizon goes down but AT&T is still working, that's an automatic switchover. The software, the streaming software does that automatically. The way the connections work when you've got dual modems is basically whichever one it gets to first. That's a little bit simplified. You can create some rules in here that say which one is used for what types of streaming or protocols, voice calls, things like that. But some software is not good about failing over automatically, namely like Skype, Zoom. A lot of those, if you lose that connection even for a second, you have to disconnect and reconnect manually. Now, I don't know exactly which software can fail over automatically and which ones are manual, but I know that when I've lost Zoom calls in the past, I had to reconnect. So in that particular situation, it does help you in that there's always, or hopefully, if one connection fails, the other connection is there, and when you reconnect, it's very quick. You don't have to go troubleshooting the one that went down. But for those of you like us who really need a much better connection, that's something that's a little more redundant and automatic and fail-safe, there's a thing called Speed Fusion. Now, this is a technology, this is their brand for PepWave and PepLink, and basically what it is it's a virtual tunnel. It's kind of like a virtual private network, and to set that up, you need something on the other end, right? So I've got my PepLink here. It has to connect to something that understands how to set up the other side of the Speed Fusion tunnel. Now, PepLink does have their own thing called Speed Fusion Cloud that you can actually use and you can purchase in like chunks, I think, of 10 gigabytes. Don't quote me on that because that's bound to change. And you could also set up your own. If you're super tech savvy and you know how to set up an instance in Amazon Web Services, then you can, or whatever, you can set up your own backend for Speed Fusion. But you don't have to worry about that if you're a Mobile Must Have customer because they have you covered there as well. Now, I believe it's a $99 setup and $30 a month, but that gets you a terabyte, up to a terabyte of data. So it's definitely the best option out there. Let's touch briefly on this Speed Fusion thing and why it's so cool for somebody who needs a very resilient, high availability type of connection. What it does is it's a virtual tunnel, and it looks like one connection here, but it's using both at the same time on the back end. It also gives you a little bit of a bandwidth increase, but not as much as you might think. If I've got a 15 meg connection and a 15 meg connection, I'm not going to get 30 megs down. The reason being is it takes a little bit of your bandwidth to manage the overhead of the connection. And depending on the type of connection you set up, whether you configure it for ultimate resiliency, which basically sends all traffic down both pipes, and if one fails, one keeps going, that has a lot of overhead to it, and you're not going to get much speed gain off of that. But the other way you can go is configured more for speed, which is what we have. You still have the redundancy and the resiliency, but more of the overhead is geared towards speed versus the resiliency. So Mobile Must Have can help set you up with whichever kind of connection you need to have for your business or whatever it is you're running out of your RV. And I'm not going to say more about that because I could just go on forever, but it's really, really cool. And you can see, I don't know if you can see this right here, we've got our Dropbox uploading files, and it's using both connections, and it's balanced between the two, and it just works, man. It's just solid. So that's it. That's our new super fantastic, mega awesome internet setup. It's so good. Yeah, it might be overkill for those of you who are looking for something real basic, and I get that. But if you are running your business or something out of your RV, or even if you're just taking vacations and you need super solid internet, this might be something you want to look into and be well worth the investment. For us, definitely is.
Keep your eyes open on our social media for announcements for our big upcoming giveaway.
Yep. When we hit that 100K mark, we're going to be giving away lots of stuff, including some internet stuff.
That's right. Thanks.